Interview with the Vampire TV series should not worked. Made 30 years after 1994 Neil Jordan's film, the adaptation of beloved Anne Rice's 1976 novel was initially met with skepticism. I know, I was one of the skeptics. They changed the setting, they changed the story, they changed the characters, cardinal sins of any adaptation. And yet, the show, which has now been renewed for a third season, is universally acclaimed by critics and fans alike. And in this video, I want to compare the changes between the show and the books, and I'll add the movie too for the fans, and answer the question, how on earth did they make it work so well? I love Anne Rice's books. She was one of my favorite authors when I was a young teen. There are 13 books in the Vampire Chronicles series, with the first one, Interview with the Vampire, being the most popular. Now, the AMC TV series based on the novel premiered in 2022. Second season was released in 2024 and now renewed for the third, which will be based on the second novel, Vampire Lestat. So how does the show compare to the books and the 1994 film? Now, a warning, obviously there will be spoilers. So if you haven't watched the show yet, do it now. The first big change is the time when the events take place. Rice's novel was published in 1976. The interview between vampire Louis de Pointe-du-Lac and young reporter Daniel Molloy takes place in the 70s, flashing back and forth between the interview itself and the events of Louis' past, which take place in the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries. In the movie, the timeline is similar, but the interview takes place in the late 20th century, probably the 90s, when they made the film. The biggest change is in the TV series. The difference between timelines doesn't fully remove the original setting, because it's kind of a follow-up. The original interview with Molloy took place in the 70s, but the show is set in our times, in present times, when older Molloy re-interviews Louis. Also, the story of Louis is now set in just the 20th century, at the beginning of it, and then after the Second World War. So, for example, when Louis and Claudia first visit Théâtre des Vampires, I don't know any French, in Paris, in the book, this is set in the second half of the 19th century, but in the show, they are in a post-war France. In the book, Louis meets with the reporter Daniel Molloy in a small San Francisco flat. It's the same in the movie. Now, in a TV show, he gets an upgrade. Modern-day Louis lives in a Dubai penthouse with sun-deflecting windows, expensive art and furniture. You know, it's a place that social media influencers can only dream of. In the novel, Louis is a white slave owner on a Louisiana plantation. His sexuality is kind of ambiguous, and like Lestat often says, he whines quite a bit. He's 25 when made into a vampire. In 1994 movie, Louis, played by Brad Pitt, overall, it kind of remains the same. The big change is in the AMC series. So Louis is now a 33-year-old gay, black Creole brothel and gambling house owner in 1910s New Orleans. I wonder if they chose this location because that's where Anne Rice's home was. But anyway, the change opens an interesting story about being gay, racial tensions and identity in the American South in the early 20th century. And in my view, this makes him even more interesting than the original Louis and makes him fit for modern storytelling. One thing that is also a change is his power. Especially in season 2, he dominates Armand and is portrayed as a powerful, vengeful vampire at the end of the season, which is not exactly the same as the books. In the first novel, Lestat is a narcissistic, cruel, cold, possessive over Louis' fatherly love for Claudia. He's the brat prince, you know, according to himself. In the movie, the cruelty and it's lessened a little bit, and Lestat, played by Tom Cruise, is a bit more playful, a bit more childlike. But I think that so far, Lestat resembles the book better in the TV series. His love and longing for Louis are portrayed extremely well, but he's still violent, he's cruel, he's possessive, he's narcissistic. I guess we'll find more about his story in the third season, but so far Sam Reed did a fantastic job portraying the vampire. In the books, she's 5 years old when turned into a vampire. Now Rice describes her as resembling a perfectly painted china doll with long curly golden hair, blue eyes and fair skin. 12-year-old Kirsten Dunst played Claudia in the film, fairly similar to the novel. But it's the TV series that makes a major change, turning Claudia into a black 14-year-old, played by Bailey Bass in the first season and Delane Hales in the second season. Her origins they're somewhat similar, but it's the age and race change that creates a different dynamic. She's at a cusp of womanhood, trapped in the body of a teen. And again, it allows for a further exploration of her character. In my view, it fits better for this retelling of the story, especially since they made the show very explicit. It would be just weird with a small child, running around. Armand in the books is a young boy. He's 17 from Eastern Europe. He has a tragic backstory of being rescued by a vampire Marius from a brothel in Venice. Rice described him as a beautiful with curly auburn hair, large brown eyes and slender fingers. He and Louis have an intense relationship and he helps to guide Louis on how to be a vampire. Now in the movie, Armand is played by older Antonio Banderas and his relationship with Louis is tamed a bit. There is a change in TV series. Armand's backstory remains similar to the books, but his race is South Asian, played by Asad Zaman. He's older than the books Armand, plus he's still with Louis when they do the interview. So they never parted after Paris, like in a book. So the dynamic between them changed a little bit. He's also portrayed as a quite weak near the end of season 2, or maybe meek rather than weak, so we'll see how they write him in the future, as he's a powerful vampire and a protagonist of the 6th Rice novel, The Vampire Armand. In a book, we never learn Molloy's name. Louis refers to him as the boy and describes him as a tall, young, blonde reporter. We know his name from later books. In the movie, 25-year-old Christian Slater played Molloy. What's really interesting is his portrayal in a TV series. So yeah, in a second season, we do get young Molloy from the 70s, but the main character is played by Eric Bogosian in present times. He's older, he's more mature, he's suffering from Parkinson's disease. Now in the second book, Armand makes Molloy a vampire and then he goes mad for a little bit. But in the series, Armand makes Molloy a vampire at the end of the second season. We don't get to see it, but he seems fine. So he may be one of the main characters in a future series. Only time will tell. In the books, vampires share bonds, companionships and romantic love. But they can't have sex because their bodies die. And even if they could, they have no interest in it, as feeding on humans and other vampires is so much better. Now this is explored in a 4th novel, The Tale of a Body Thief, when Lestat turns back human for a bit and then he tries sex. In the film, sexuality was toned down massively and the story focused on the relationships between the vampires. In the series, well, they went full on with the sex. The vampires can get on with each other, and they often do, passion, love and relationships are portrayed clearly. There is a focus on a same-sex love. However, vampires don't see it the same way as humans do, and it's longing for companionship that drives them. They try to combat their eternal loneliness. But yeah, there is a lot of that in the series, so don't watch it with your kids or with your parents. As I said in the beginning, many people were hesitant about the AMC show because of the changes. But since then, pretty much everyone has praised it. Now, when I was a young teen, I was really into vampires. Unrise vampires, of course, not the Twilight rubbish.
This is what I am.
The books were my favorites. We also played a lot of tabletop games, such as World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade, with our mates. I liked the original video games too. And of course, the movie was great. Not the 2002 Queen of the Damned, that was shit. I think Interview with the Vampire show is a perfect example of an adaptation that takes the best bits of the story and makes it a series. And the changes absolutely work in a modern setting, and the acting is fantastic. I also love the music by Daniel Hart, which not only fits the different times, but the romantic but violent nature of the characters. But the most important is, of course, the writing. They added complexity to the vampires, their relationships, dynamics, all set in our present times. Overall, the story remains the same, even though there are creative changes at points, but it feels and looks like a show made with passion. So it's a shame that it's not more popular, right? Now, why is that? Well, I and other people think that the marketing sucks. Plus, it's on some rubbish AMC Plus platform. I had to wait months to get it here in the UK. It's available to buy on Amazon Prime, or you can watch it on BBC iPlayer. Now, the good news is that it was renewed for a third season, I've already said, but it's a part of the immortal universe that AMC tries to build. Mayfair Witches series, also based on Rice books, is a part of the universe. I haven't watched it yet. Apparently it's not as good, but I reserve my judgment. But the Interview is coming to Netflix, which hopefully means more people will discover it and bring it to the spotlight, because it absolutely deserves it. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
When I'm tired, I'm not so kind.